Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be looking at some balance changes which I think should desperately happen inside of Brawl Stars. A lot of really strong brawlers in the game right now and a lot of really weak ones. So before we jump into it, make sure you're using the creator code. That'd be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. Alright guys, so we're going to be starting off with the nerfs, which I think desperately need to happen within Brawl Stars right now. There's a lot of really strong brawlers in the game, which is definitely ruining my experience whenever I play a ladder. So the first one is going to be Chester. So Chester, the brand new legendary in Brawl Stars, I think is really fun to play, has really unique characteristics about him, really fun super, gadgets, etc. But within ladder right now, he's way too strong, so easy to use as well, and that's why you see a lot of randoms picking up Chester and playing him. So there's a few big problems with Chester. The main one, of course, being his damage. So his damage just scales up way too much, especially when it gets to his fourth sequence. He can do, whenever he shoots his third and fourth sequence together, at least 7k damage. That is absolutely insane. They can literally two-shot so many different brawlers in the game. That's way too much. So the first one, a small damage nerf, even like 80, we'll take away 80 damage per bell, so make it like 1,000 per bell. I think that sounds about right for now. Of course, you don't want to make him too weak. And then the next big one, which I think desperately needs to happen, is with his super. So the stun super is ridiculously strong. I think it's actually one of the best supers that's ever existed in Brawl Stars. It deals 2k damage, it can snipe you across the map, it stuns you for 2 seconds, and then it also actually regenerates your super halfway through, which is just absolutely insane. The super is just so annoying, so I think completely nerf that stun super, you know, take away the damage. The stun duration is just too much, just everything about it. Also making it charge back half your super again, I just don't really agree with. That super's so broken, so a couple of these things could make Chester a lot more balanced. Okay, so now moving on to the next big problem within Brawl Stars, it is with Buster. So Buster, of course, still completely busted right now. Whenever I play Power League, I ban 2 brawlers, well, straight away. I really want both of these brawlers banned. It's Grom and Buster. Buster is just absolutely insane right now, especially on those grassy maps. It feels nearly impossible to take him down as a lane because his super is really strong. He gets to regenerate his ammo and his health whilst pushing up, which is absolutely insane. Also with his brand new star power, it just makes it so strong, like you can't get pushed back or interrupted throughout your super. You can then cancel your super by yourself as well. Just so many broken things about him. His gadget as well, you can slow people with it. It's way too strong. So for me, there needs to be a couple of nerfs for him. So the first one for sure has to be something to do with his super. Either nerf the duration, so then it of course doesn't get as much healing, but then also his shielding of course isn't nowhere near as much. You could obviously do that, or you could do it the big way. It depends on how they kind of want to like go about this. So they could just make it so you don't regenerate health whilst in your shield and ammo, which it might make Buster really bad, but then again, that's the same kind of mechanics with Janet. Of course, whenever she's in the air, she doesn't replenish her ammo and health. So I just think Buster definitely needs a big nerf. Okay, so next up on the nerf list, we have Gray. So Gray for me has to be, well, has to have a massive nerf on his grand piano. This gadget is so broken, being able to break open so much of the map. So there's a couple of ways you can nerf this. Either nerf the radius or just remove the wall break aspect. It's way too strong. Definitely the one everyone is complaining about. And then for me, the next big problem for Gray has to be with his teleport. So his teleport is really fun, but I feel like he shouldn't be able to teleport you and your teammates instantly, right? You see the Jackie cheesy strategy I covered on a channel a few days ago. That is way too strong. Definitely needs a bit of a nerf. But overall, Gray's a high skill cap brawler. With a couple of tweaks, I think it'd be a really balanced brawler. Okay, so next up on the nerf list, of course, we have Grom. So Grom right now is literally like a top 5, if not top 3 brawler within the game right now. For me, the most annoying brawler by far in the game. I really don't, well, I like playing throwers myself, but really hate it when a thrower is meta because it's so toxic. Of course, it's just a broken thing being able to throw over a wall and then just deal so much damage. Everything about him is so strong. So for me, the number one thing that I would change, of course, is his projectile speed. His projectile speed has been buffed before. It was a little bit too weak, right? The fact that against a Grom, you could easily dodge him. It actually needed a buff, but this buff was just way too strong. You're able just to deal so much damage. It's so easy to hit your shots now, and it's nearly impossible to dodge them. It's really frustrating facing off against a Grom. So, of course, projectile speed. And I just think the damage was overdone. Like, literally, so many brawlers in the game, you can put out a couple of shots to them, and not even, like, at max range with Grom. Like, of course, you get extra damage with X Factor. Just hitting on plain blank, like, especially brawlers like Spike, you can literally two-shot them. It's just insane. So Grom needs a few nerfs. He's one of the most annoying brawlers in the game by far. Okay, and lastly on the nerf list, hopefully, it is B. So B has been dominating the meta for a couple of months now, probably even longer. I think it's really frustrating facing off against her, especially with so many wall break meta brawlers in the game right now. But just overall, she's so toxic. She can deal with literally everything. So we got actually only nerf her a little bit, because for the longest time she actually wasn't a problem in the game. Only recently she started to become meta because of brawlers around her. So for me, only a small nerf, maybe like a reload nerf. At a minute she takes 0.9 seconds to reload. Maybe just make it 1 second, see where that leaves her, because I feel like it's just a meta that's really making her strong, but definitely she needs a little bit of tweak. Alright guys, so now moving on to the buffs. So starting off with Mandy. I know a lot of you guys probably even haven't got Mandy unlocked yet, but I feel like right now, I mean, she's kind of balanced, but more so on the weaker side, especially for a brand new Brawl Pass brawler. A lot of times these brawlers are like the best in the game. You know, Buster, for example, literally been the best in the game for a long time. So I think they're going to buff Mandy. I'm not too sure how they can go about it, because I feel like a super has potential to be really strong, especially when you hit 2 brawlers. You can literally charge it back instantly. That's pretty strong, but overall, I just think Mandy's a little bit awkward. So buff is definitely needed. Not too sure how you go about this. I think the biggest factor as to why I don't think Mandy is the best brawler right now is just because of the charge shot. Of course, you have to stand still to get the full utility out of it. Maybe make it so the bar charges a little bit quicker, then it might incentivize you to stand still a little bit more. But overall, Mandy definitely needs a little bit of love. Okay, so next up on the buff list we have Jessie. So again, another brawler you got to be really careful about buffing, because at lower end trophies Jessie is really strong, but for me Jessie's just terrible. Like, she had a little bit of love like a couple of years ago where they made her damage like insane. I think she needs definitely a little bit of love with her projectile speed, because you saw what it did to Penny, right? It literally made her one of the best brawlers in the game. I think they need to do it with Jessie. So not even like the biggest of buffs, and definitely a nice suggestion by Arcasine on Twitter is, of course, increase the projectile speed of the main attack, but the bounce shots keep the same, because then it might be a little bit too toxic for those lower level players. But definitely she needs something, whether it be a damage buff, a HP buff, something needs to happen, because Jessie is just not usable in competitive. Alright guys, so jumping into the next buff, which I think should happen with the update, it is with Rico. So this is definitely more of a biased one, guys. I feel like he's somewhat balanced, if not on the weaker side, but I think Rico right now doesn't actually have much place in the meta. Like on the maps which I thought Rico used to be really good on, you know, like Pit Stop, for example, Hard Rock Mine, I just think he's way too easy to counter. So many brawlers in the game right now that can easily just close the gap on Rico, and he doesn't have any way to really defend himself. So I'm not too sure actually how to buff him. I just think that he hasn't really got much of a place in the meta anymore, which is sad, because Rico used to be a really fun brawler. Maybe just increase his gadget killing a little bit. I don't really know. Maybe increase his HP a little bit so he can survive better. Something needs to be done, because I feel like he's really lost his niche in the meta. So next up on the buff list we have Tara. So with Tara, I feel like she definitely deserves a little bit of love. So she's not been anywhere close to competitive meta ever since she got nerfed back in March last year. She only received a small nerf, but I'm not too sure why they even did it, because it basically killed her from competitive. It was only like a 20 damage nerf per card, but it really did a lot. So I think reverting that change really will go a long way in helping Tara back in the meta. I'd really like to see her, because although her play rate is still really high, even though she's actually one of the worst brawlers in the game, you just never see her in Power League, right? So a little bit of love could go a long way. And lastly on the buff list we still have Mr. P. So everyone probably wondering whether Mr. P is still viable whatsoever since the damage buff. I really don't think he is. He's still just so easily countered by any sort of aggression, right? They can just run into Mr. P's face and take him down so easily. The damage buff for me just did literally nothing. He's terrible, and the big problem with Mr. P for me is that you don't actually get rewarded so much, especially when you hit a shot at long range. I think Mr. P is actually one of the harder brawlers to hit at long range. You know, if you know how to dodge or just open your eyes, you can easily dodge a Mr. P at max range, right? So I'm not sure how to really go about this, or just buff him in other categories like his damage again. But for me, Mr. P is still a terrible brawler, one of the worst in the games right now, and he's been needing some love for the longest. Alright guys, it's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of my balance change predictions in the comment section below. A lot of these I've actually put forward to the Supercell team, so hopefully these will get implemented pretty soon. But of course, the big ones for me have to be the likes of Chester, Buster, and Grom. Those 3 brawlers are really taking the skill out of Brawl Stars, especially Grom. Grom is just a brawler I insta-ban every single time, because literally if you don't have some type of like wall break or aggression, and it's actually pretty hard to implement that sometimes in Power League, you're just going to get 1v3'd by Grom. It is just so toxic, so hard to actually dodge. Buster, everyone knows the cheese with Buster. And then Chester, I just feel like anyone can pick up Chester and play it, and sometimes it's a little bit too brain dead for me. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.